Hi, welcome to the Urban Outdoors and SoCal video. My name is Danny Milton, and today we're going to be working on my bike. What we're going to be doing today is installing the new 2020 Shimano XT drivetrain. This is a 1x12 drivetrain. This is the newer cassette. It has the 10 to 51 tooth rear cassette. I'm going to be installing that. We have to put on the shifter, the derailleur, and we're also going to be putting on the new cassette onto my rear wheel. So I just want to let you know that you will probably have to change your rear hub, and that is going to be an additional cost too on top of the price of the drivetrain. For me personally, I have the Stan's Neo rear hub. So to get the new micro spline hub, obviously I had to buy the new one, and the new one was $90. So I'm really excited to put this drivetrain on my bike. I demoed a bunch of bikes in Sedona at the Sedona Mountain Bike Festival that had this XT 1x12 drivetrain. I did, I believe, the Canyon Strive and also the Ibis Ritmo V2 both had this drivetrain on there, and it works really well. I'm really excited about it. So one of my favorite features about the Shimano system is indexing the gears. Now, obviously this is your big paddle. That's to drive your chain up to those bigger chain rings as you're climbing hills. And you can just, gush through those. You can just switch through those gears really quickly with just one push. You're going up 3 or 4 teeth at a time. So when you want to go to those smaller chain rings, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can use your index finger from the front of the bar and do 1 click at a time, or if you want to drop down really fast, if you use your thumb and push forward, you get that double click. And that double click will drop your chain down 2 cassette rings at a time, and you can get to the bottom really fast like that. This is the XT 1x12 drivetrain, or 1x12 cassette. Your top ring here is a 51 tooth. The next one down is a 45, and then the one beneath that is a 39. So you only have a 6 tooth difference between each of these top 3. I think it's smarter to have more gearing on the top end because you spend so much more time climbing. If you're climbing and descending like I most of the time do in Southern California here, I want more gearing on that top end. That's why I have a smaller chain ring in the front as well. So I think it's smart that Shimano put a little bit more gearing on the top end of this cassette. I really like that. One thing I want to say really quick too is I am not a bike mechanic. I have never had any type of training or anything like that. Most of the stuff that I've learned about bikes, I've learned by watching YouTube videos or just, trial and error by myself. So like I said, I'm not a professional. I could be doing something wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments down below. Try to be as nice as you can. But this is just me putting on this drivetrain and doing my best at it and showing you guys how to do it as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be doing is changing out the actual cable line, this part of the line. We have the old one in here. We're going to replace this just like we did the brake line. I'm going to tape one end of this new line to the old one and pull it through the frame. I don't have internal routing in this, so I would have to feed it through the openings in the frame and try to get it to the spot, but we're going to tape it together, tape this to one end of the old cable, pull it all the way through, and go from there. So this is the front end of the old cable. You can see it goes right through here, through the side of the frame. We're going to pull this little rubber insert out here. We're going to take it all the way down to the other side, and it comes out right here out of this side. So we have to remove this insert as well. The hole in the frame is there. So the rubber insert pops out, and then you can see the line comes down across underneath part of my chain guard, and then back out the other end. So you can see here we've got the 2 ends taped together. I just use a little bit of electrical tape, and we're going to pull it through the frame now. So now we've got the 2 ends taped together. We're going to remove this insert here. This line also has a little foam piece to cut down probably the amount of rattle noise. You can see we've already got our tape coming through. Take our foam piece off of the old cable housing. Foam insert on this end. Push that into the frame. And pull out the excess. So we've got some up here, we've got some down here. I'm going to line this through, get it through the rest of there. So I had to retape the old cable to the new cable to pull it through this last part of the triangle to get it out where it comes to the derailleur. Okay, so now that we have the housing all the way through the entire frame and out the rear triangle, we're going to put the derailleur on. That way we'll be able to feed the cable housing into the derailleur to see how much we're going to have to chop off the other end. I had the wrong dropper post hanger on here. This is the hanger that I was previously using. This is the one that I was using with my 1x10 Shimano. And to find a part number is kind of difficult, but usually this is the 326 hanger and this is the 325 hanger. This is called the dropout kit. You can see it's much shorter. It's going to put the derailleur in a much different spot. You can see it's going to put a little bit farther forward and a little bit lower. One thing you will need to do is this little piece right here, this little kind of piece that's sticking out, this is what the B tension screw pushes against. And this little part, this part has to be on this side of it when you screw this on. Otherwise, it will just swing freely and you don't want that. Hold both the pieces up like this, screw this on, and you want to make sure that that piece is resting against the lip of the hanger all the way down, and then tighten it up. And you can see that the derailleur will not swing any farther forward. It'll go back, but it won't swing any farther forward. If that piece wasn't pushed against there, the derailleur would just swing like this, and that's what you don't want. So the next thing we're going to do is attach the shifter. It's going to be attached to the bottom side of my Shimano XT 4-piston brakes here. That way there's one less bar clamp on your bars and it looks nice, you know, it looks nice and clean. So after we get that cable shifter installed, we're going to feed the cable through, put it all the way through the line, all the way down to the rear derailleur, get that attached and go from there. So you can see here we have our Shimano XT brake lever here, and this is the bar clamp right here. Right now it's in the open position. This little indentation, or this little cutout right here in the bar clamp part of it, you take this small piece here, this comes with your shifter, that slots in right there, so you can see it's curved so it'll sit inside your bar mount or on the bars. You take this little tiny screw that comes with your shifter, and if that'll stay right there and be nice. We have our shifter here. Here's where the mount goes through, so you take your screw, you put the screw through there, and then you take your housing and screw them together like that. That way you have one less bar mount sitting on your bars and it looks nice and clean. All right, we got the screw going in to the insert, tightening that down. Hopefully you can see that, and my hat, nothing's blocking. So now that we have the shifter pretty much locked down, you can see we've got a little bit front to back and side to side motion here, so you can, once you get your brake lever set to where you want it to be, you can move that shifter around. I'm usually pretty much as far over to the left, closer to the stem as possible when I have that shifter in. It's hard, you know, you gotta kind of sit in the bike and get a feel for where you want it to be exactly. Right in here is where you're gonna feed your cable through. The cable's gonna go through, come out this side of your shifter, and then we're going to feed it through our cable housing here. Feeding our cable through the shifter and pull that all the way out. And before you feed your cable through the actual cable housing, make sure you have this little piece on here, this little like hard plastic metal piece, because that's going to fit right into this piece, and it's going to get him pushed back and forth. You also want to be careful with the tips of these cables. You want to be pretty gentle with them, because once they start to fray and pull apart, they just fall to pieces. One thing I will say is on this part right here, this is kind of like your fine-tune adjustment once we have everything locked into place. I usually turn it all the way back, front to back this way, right? That's its low setting. And I'll give it maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns forward before we go to the back and tighten up the cable. That way, if you do have to let off some of that tension, you have room to let that tension off so we can get that derailleur in the right spot. So we're just about to attach our cable right here. What I will tell you is you want to make sure you have your chain and your gear selector shifted all the way down to your lowest tooth cassette wheel back here. That's just going to make it easier to get everything set up and tuned up properly. You want to make sure you have all the tension out as tight as you can from right here. That way it's not loose up somewhere in the shifter housing. So we're going to pull it around. We're going to pull this up. Now you don't want to pull this too tight because then it will influence where our derailleur is pushed in. If you pull it too tight, it'll start to pull the derailleur in. You want to pull this as tight as you can without influencing the derailleur. Hold it up like this and tighten up our 4mm hex bolt right here. So we're good. Now we're going to eventually trim off a bunch of this cable, but I don't want to do it yet, just in case we need to redo it, anything like that. All right, so we've got our brand new micro spline DuraSync hub on there. We've got all the little pieces on it. Sounds really clean and crisp. It's a very loud rear hub, the Stan's Neo. So if you like a quiet hub, don't get this one. If you like a loud hub, this thing is awesome. With the 6 pawls in there, it hums like a freaking flock of bees. Not a flock of bees, a swarm of bees. English is hard sometimes. It sounds like a swarm of bees coming down the trail, and it is awesome. So what we're gonna do now is put the rear cassette onto the hub, and I'll show you a couple little close-up pictures really quick. You can see here, this is where the Stan's logo is, and that's where the one real wide spline is. You're gonna see on the back, let's see if we can see this really close. There's all of the spines on the back of this are all the same size, except for one right here at the top. It's wider, it's twice as wide as all of these other splines. And that's gonna go right in the divot where it says Stan's. So going from largest to smallest, you have 18, 16, 14, 12, and then your 10 tooth. All of these are your rings here. They do have to go in this specific order that'll all fit together. These two little spacers right here, these are some type of, I don't know, plastic, carbon fiber, maybe something thing. It goes in between the 18 and the 16 and the 16 and the 14. They are 2 different sizes. This one is a little bit thicker. This one is a little bit thinner. You have to put them in this order, otherwise it'll throw off the spacing of your chain rings. So once you get that spline lined up, it's gonna slide right on like that. Then we're gonna go with our 16 tooth, and you can see it's got that same gap right there. These little chain ring pieces will have a number for the tooth right here. This one says 16. It's really hard to see on camera. We have that thick spline right there again. We've got that same spot. Slide that into place. We're going to take the thicker spacer, put that on there. Then we're going to take our 14 tooth. We're going to find that one big spacer of the splines, put that on. Put on our smaller, thinner little plastic piece right there. Now we're going with the 14. It should go right on nice and securely like that when you have the right pieces lined up. We have the 12, and you can see it has that same kind of big gap right here at the top of this one. So when you get those teeth lined up, this last one is